Is on the second part of my first presentation. It's called panel 3, I guess. So Amazon is in fact a great paradox. So it's one of the richest regions in the world. And this wealth is all type you can imagine. It starts from vegetation, diversity, water, rivers, mineral resources. And most of this wealth or resources we still don't know. So we know very, very little about the Amazon. But what we know is enough for us to decide what we should do with Amazon and how we should deal with that particular situation of contrasting conditions of wealth from one side and extremely poverty and misery and hunger from the other side. And so we're going to bring some points to elucidate some of these aspects.
Estão procurando lá?
Não, tranquilo.
Vai falando.
Vou falando. Okay, I'll keep going. And so this topic or this panel is quite interesting because after I retired, I was looking for something different to do. And I decided to do things that I couldn't dedicate much while I was working. So 35 years as a university professor, teaching soil microbiology primarily and fertilizer technology. And then I went to a mining company with a big challenge to contribute to put science in the whole operation of this high global company. Which has huge operation in several different countries, going from different mineral commodities and all kind of challenge you can imagine. From prospective geology to mineralogy to environmental geochemistry to environmental impact to difficulty to operate because of the weather. You know, high temperature, high precipitation in certain type of the year, and how these interfere with the operation. For instance, like fog in some of the mine in Amazon, fog could affect the copper production in 10%. And that's a lot of money. And the questions that I have to solve for the company is how can we solve or face this kind of problem? So why we have fog in Amazon, you know? So things like this that I have to put together, our expertise and knowledge, and to offer some solution, some operating solution for the company. Flooding. So in Brazil, the Carajás train system is 960 kilometers that goes from Pará to the port in São Luís in Maranhão. And in some type of the year, you have such a high precipitation that we have flood and the train cannot circulate. And we cannot solve that problem without engineering solution, but we could predict when this flooding will happen and where and what is the intensity. So we have to mobilize another type of knowledge that could help the company to design a solution to face with that problem, to avoid flooding into train and interruption of the whole process, because the big ship is waiting there in the port. Great, thank you very much. So this is the presentation, the topic that was given to me. So again, after I retired, I then looked for something interesting and useful to do. And I have dedicated to the scarcity or the limit of natural resource for this type of economy, agriculture, energy, mining, and so on. So that's one interesting topic. And then I ended up with bioeconomy And then I said, well, hunger is another big problem. How can we put science in this hunger problem? And then asked by the directory of the Brazilian Academy of Science, we organized a good meeting in Rio last year with all type of expertise to discuss this problem, how science can help to face the hunger problem in Brazil and in the world. And we did that quite well. And Marianja coordinated a book that's being published and it's being translated to English also. She already gave some insights about this book on her talk. And so Fernando asked me to go by this Amazon paradox, where natural and scientific wealth coexist with hunger and social misery. And so that's about that we're going to be covering today. So, of course, in addition, in these original topics that I was mentioning, Amazon is on the top of this a big challenge that Brazil and the whole world has to face, how to develop Amazon. And Judson made a very good short presentation on bringing up some of these aspects. It will just give some overall contextualization of this scenario. So, as we know, it's the largest tropical forest in the world, covering half of the Brazilian territory. But it is important to say that even though there is this big propaganda that Brazil is destroying its forest, there is still 82% of the forest is still well preserved. So we deforestate, that's true, but there is still a lot. And is that good enough to conserve, to protect, to preserve? The answer is yes. Because all the studies we have so far, all the science can tell us at this point is that if we preserve 30% of the original vegetation, of the original ecosystem, we are in a good pace in terms of development. And so the case of Amazon, we are far beyond that. A huge stock of carbon, biodiverse freshwater reservoir. Wood is the largest wood stock in the world. And wood is money, wood is carbon, wood is wealth. Biodiversity, fresh water, and mineral resources. And I have developed several research with my team when I was at ITV, and we show that mining could be a good way to generate wealth to face this poverty and misery in Amazon with a little impact, because all of the impact that mining causes can be very well reversed or can be rehabilitated, mitigated, and so on. So we have a variety of strategy. And what I generate in mining in a very small area that is impacted, I may need it 10 to 15 times more land doing cattle ranching or agriculture to generate the same value. But environmentalists don't accept this kind of approach. And that's one thing that we need to clarify. So close to 30 million inhabitants, and the vast majority very poor and living in urban, precarious condition. And that's the reality. So people only think about the forest, the fish, and the animals, but they forget about these people that has nothing practically. It is under high pressure and experience the most dynamic land use change in the world. But remember, we are talking about the ultimate global frontier for sustainable development. So we need to look at all of that in a very careful way. Plays a dynamic role in global conservation and climate change, even for Brazil. And so Amazon, together with Antarctica, is responsible to regulate precipitation, temperature, to regulate the weather in Brazil, especially in central, west, and east, southeast of Brazil. And so that's what Amazon is really important. I would say, just to mention the the flying rivers that what regulate precipitation in most of this production area in the central west of Brazil. And so it is under predatory exploitation process, not exploration, the right is exploitation. And so the way we're doing with Amazon is non-sustainable, okay? So great potential to develop based on a strategy for conservation, but several attempts, several policies to generate wealth based only upon conservation did not work. Did not work because so far we didn't find enough money or strategy to pay for the environmental ecosystemic services. If you find a way to pay for that, maybe this strategy would function. But we could develop industry, even the extractivist type of activity we could call a modern bioeconomy could be important, has a great potential, but other type of industry. So we've got to be open for all of these activities, including services. Health services is very poor, education is very poor, infrastructure is almost zero, so people have no sewage system and drinkable water, and all of these things. So to develop Amazon, we have to consider all of that, okay? So that's part of this overall contextualization. So the great paradox is then this great abundant resource and wealth and this underdeveloped and poverty on the other side, and how we deal with this situation. So the great challenge is how to move from this extractive predatory economy to a science-based bioeconomy and aggregate other economic activities that could balance and generate enough wealth. The only way we can combat poverty is generating wealth, is with health, with richness, money. So someone give this money or we have to generate this money there. So forest products are low value chain. So a lot of people, intellectuals from office says we have to live on this forest product chain. We export about 64 different products, but Eduardo mentioned that Europeans don't want to buy forest products, from the Amazon. They're not interested in that. And in fact, they are low value. It's just a survival strategy, a subsistence strategy. And that's what is happening. And population is increasing, and the income generation is very low, and then this results in degradation. Severe social vulnerability and poverty and high food insecurity, hunger. Hunger in Amazon is several times greater, bigger than the other part of Brazil. So that's go together with misery. Hunger is not a thing that's happened by accident, it's a consequence. So how to generate sufficient wealth to promote development while preserving the forest, rivers, biodiversity, and the local culture? That's a big challenge, and we have to find this way. And we're talking about the half of a country, a big country like Brazil. So you're not talking about a small country or a piece of land. We have to join natural capital with knowledge to establish a new virtual cycle. And only science and good management and strategy, intelligence can help us to find this way. And there are, Judson mentioned that there are already 64 million hectares of land that's being cleared. This number changed a lot if I use a Carlos platform or map biomas or so on. But the fact that a huge amount is close to the whole land we use for agricultural production, for grain production, for instance, we have there in Amazon. And this land can be used for restoration or sustainable agricultural development. So there are various systems there. There are very science and technological based systems that are highly sustainable. And so with appropriate technology, production, and market organization, Amazon can become the world's greatest barn of natural products, including organics, okay? Like mango, you can harvest mango out Amazon from Belém to Rondônia. In any place you can harvest a whole bunch of mango with a single gram of fertilizer or a pesticide. Why not to develop that, to organize this thing, you know? Like other fruits, like pineapple. The best pineapple that I ever ate is from part of Pará, Tocantins, and so on. And so I'll not mention açaí or cupuaçu or the nuts and this kind of thing. So the fact is that this product has a potential of $200 billion a year, but it's 1 or 2% of that in reality, because this market is not organized. So moving to this problem of food insecurity in Amazon. So it's important. It's important to understand this, what we call the food system. So it's production, processing, distribution, and consumption. We got to understand the whole chain. So it's not only production. The same way, we have to understand the conception and dimensions of the food security. And so food security is viability, access, utilization, and stability. If you don't have these things, we will fall into food insecurity. So an important aspect here that for us to understand, because food insecurity is very different in different places, even in Brazil and different countries. No? And so in the past, hunger was because low production, not enough food, scarcity. Today, it's because of gaps in productivities and instability of the food production and distribution. And the more important thing, incapacity to pay for food. Okay, so access, no access. So we have enough food in most places, even though there are 70 countries where food production is not enough. But the problem is access, and the access is other problem. In the future, we have to deal with uncertainties and the scarcity risk for the agri-food system. So we may have a collapse of the food production system. So food insecurity in Amazon is 3 times higher than the other part of Brazil. Why? Why? It's because we have weak economy, because we have low income, geographic isolation, social exclusion, insufficient food production in many places, overexploitation of natural resources, especially the wildlife. So the native population rely upon fishing, hunting, açaí, nuts, and some other few products, like cassava flour, to maintain them. And these things are not enough to feed this whole population. Just a few minutes more, okay? And so to reduce poverty and hunger, we first need to create wealth and income. We need to generate shared value. And that's the big challenge, how to generate value from this exploitation or this economic chain that will be better distributed to the whole population. So how can science help to do that? So I'll start with agriculture science. It's the knowledge that feeds the world. I'm not saying Brazil, I'm saying the knowledge, wherever it is. And we need right policy, okay? So the big challenge is producing enough food will be easy, but doing that at an acceptable cost to the planet will depend on research into high-tech seeds to the low-tech farm practices. This is a note from Nature editor. And it's been clear, Eduardo mentioned that, Judson mentioned that, and many others. The big problem is the exclusion that we have with 4.5 billion small farms in Brazil. And so we developed this science framework to face this problem. And it starts with agricultural science, because supply of food is the most important aspect. So production and supply, so agricultural science. And this depends on the natural resource and climate. On the other side, we have the economic science and development. And that will guarantee distribution and access of food. If you don't have that, then you have food insecurity. In the interfaith, you have the different models, economical models of production. So we still have a lot of subsistence type production system in these small farmers. And the consequence of that is that we have more hunger in the country than in the urban area. And this model for producing economic or commodity basically for export. And so sustainability and resilience is important in these two components of the major science field that could face hunger. Then we have another component in terms of science, that education and sociology. Here we're talking about the social development, we're talking about poverty and social security, and the social economic inequality. Basically, jobs and income. So that's not enough to buy food. When you saw that big curve of increasing production, the cost of producing is being high, is raising, and the salaries, the job, the income does not follow the same trend. Then we end up with like, what is the jacaré? A crocodile mouth. So it's like opening, you know? And so that's part of the problem. And we need better education. We need to improve the social structure of our society to face these two problems, culture and society class. The other component, scientific component of the science for hunger is food and health science. We're still very poor on that. And there is no good connection between production and what kind of food we have to eat and the dietary habits. And so eating habits and information is essential. So food quality, safe, and public policy are important components here. So we are talking about nutrition and life quality. So basically, that would be a framework of science to challenge, to face, to solve the hunger problem. But as I mentioned in the other presentation, science alone will not solve this problem. We need science and policies. If you don't have the right policies, we are not find this problem. It is important to understand that this whole system, which is highly integrated to each other, highly interdependent to each other. So I may have a lot of food, but if people have no education to get good jobs and have enough income, they will be starved, they will be hungry, they will be, facing this social phenomena that is very serious for the world and for us, okay? And it is all dependent on some of these big issues that we are facing today. That is the depletion of natural resources, climate change, and these sociological problems engaged or involved with ideology that complicate the whole scenario. So I will stop here and thank you.